I was in it and I was fighting the experience, and then I was fighting that I was fighting the experience. So surrendering is about accepting and going with what is there in the moment.
Welcome to the Shift Within podcast. I'm your host, Alice. I'm from the Inner Shift Institute, and I'm here to guide you on a journey inside of your mind. Our podcast is a platform for catalyzing both inner and outer shifts using the power of psychedelics and powerful therapeutic tools. Welcome to your new beginning. Welcome to your new life.
Today, we're going to talk about how to have the best psychedelic trip of your life. I'm Alice, I'm from the Inner Shift Institute, and today I'm going to talk with my team, Caro, Connie and Jan, about how to have the best psychedelic journey of your life. I want to start out with saying a quote from Dr. Stanislav Grof, who is one of the pioneers in psychedelic therapy, who says, "Psychedelics are like a knife. With a knife, you can kill someone, but you can also save their life." And with psychedelics, it's the same. Psychedelics are a wonderful tool that can absolutely change and transform your life, but they can also be harmful if taken in the wrong way. And so today we want to share about not only how to take psychedelics in a safe way, but how can you actually take them so that you have the most transformative journey, that you can go as deeply as possible so that you can meet yourself and on the deepest level that you have ever met yourself instead of escaping yourself. Because psychedelics, especially psilocybin mushrooms, can very easily be used to also escape yourself. You take it with friends at a festival, at a party, and you do not look at yourself. You just take it because you want to see the different colors and the shapes and the visions that they give you, but you're not actually going inside. So today we're going to talk about how can you use a psychedelic as a tool, as a help, as a support to go inside of yourself and release the burdens and the limiting beliefs that have been holding you back all of your life. So how do you actually create the right environment in order to have the right conditions to meet yourself in a psychedelic experience?
I really like the word environment, actually, because it describes so well what the so-called set and setting is. So maybe I'm going to explain it a little bit because it's so important to have that in your psychedelic experience. So the set is something, it's invisible. It's what is inside of you. It's your mental state, for example. It's your emotional state. It's also how you approach this journey. It has also to do a lot with your intention and how you energetically attune to what's coming up here for you. And the setting is everything that is visible. So it's going to be the place where you're going to have the psychedelic experience. It's the people you're going to be with. It's the place where you will be journeying yourself. Yeah, that's basically it. And both are really important to have a really good trip or even the best trip ever.
The music is part of the setting as well.
Oh yes.
To have like an evoking music list that activates your emotions, that takes you on a journey, that takes you deep inside. The setting is also if you're using an eye mask or if you don't use an eye mask, and the journey where you're going to meet yourself most is probably the one where you are going to use an eye mask because you have no distractions. It is really beautiful to have a journey outside in nature and to connect to nature, but to meet yourself, you're going to have to go inside. So the eye mask is going to be very helpful to do that.
Yes. And maybe also the preparation. So it's the time before you go on this journey. So what is it? What diet are you going to have? What what are you intaking from the outside world? So are you still watching TV, or are you going to say, no, I'm just going to dismiss with it for a certain period of time, get off TV, get off of social media. That may be part of the set as well.
Also part of the set and setting, if you really want to have like a therapeutic journey to go inwards, I would totally recommend to have a facilitator holding space for you, where you can super rely on that person as well and surrender and let go and have the best out of your experience without trying to control anything of the environment that you are in.
And it's very important that you are finding a facilitator where you have an instant feeling of trust.
Yes.
Because you're going to go into feelings you might not even know you have, and when you're going to go through such emotions and intense emotions that might come up, this is not, it doesn't mean that you're going to go on a psychedelic journey and this is definitely going to come up, but there are chances that you're going to go through a very intense experience, and it's good to have somebody next to you where you have this feeling of trust so that they can guide you through. And so I would love to come to the point of emotional safety, because emotional safety is so important for you to go deeper, for you to release these emotions that you actually feel resistance to. The reason that we're still carrying these emotional burdens with us into our adult life is because we didn't feel safe in the past to move through them. That's why we have this inner fight, that's why we have this inner resistance. So you need to create that emotional safety, and that is very hard to do alone. If you have somebody next to you who you don't only trust, but who has this softness and who has this feeling of, who can provide this feeling for you of whatever comes up, it's completely okay. I'm here with you. I'm not scared of your emotions. So we can go through this together. Just like what was actually the role of a parent when we were children. In our world, we are really cut off from our emotions. So a lot of us did not have parents who were able to co-regulate with us, who were able to tell us these emotions that we're feeling are okay and we can go through them together. Most of us grew up having to suppress emotions because our parents also didn't learn how to not suppress emotions. So if you have a guide next to you who has already done the work for themselves and who knows emotions are safe to feel and there are no negative emotions, we can go through everything, we can release everything. If you have a guide like that, it's going to be a whole lot easier to actually trust them and let yourself be guided through these emotions and really release them for good.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, from a personal experience and perspective, my best trips were not the ones where I felt so good. Not at all. It was when I was not alone and someone was with me and attuned to me and was helping me through some difficult periods or a difficult process that I was going through. And it created bonds and connections for a very long time, even for a lifetime.
Exactly.
Yes.
And adding to that, I think that's why I'm so happy to be part of this team, because we're all trauma-informed and we're all working a long way with mental issues and people with experiences like that. So I feel that we're very capable and we're very, the best facilitators to hold space for a person to go into the trauma as well in a safe space, in a safe setting as well.
One of our top priorities at the Inner Shift Institute is to make people feel like all of the emotions that they're having are okay, that there is no shame around any emotion, that there is no shame around any beliefs or thoughts that you have about yourself or others, even about us. We've had people in the ceremonies who started to feel angry because it happens in a journey that you start projecting the anger you have towards your parents onto one of the facilitators. So we even make that okay. All the emotions are okay. Everything that's coming up is okay. And because everything is okay and we can really transmit that feeling to the participants, they can move through their deepest, darkest pain. I wouldn't say with ease, but feeling nurtured and supported.
I would also like to add something that most people don't understand, because we think trauma is something really bad that happened. But if we're able to process what happened to us, we don't get traumatized. Usually we get traumatized because we're left alone in it. That's why. And that's why it's so beneficial to have someone with you, to have a facilitator with you that's not going to leave you while you're going through a process. And even if it's very uncomfortable or difficult emotions, and you're not going to be alone in it. And then it's the moment where you can heal it. You can heal something where you were left alone when it happened in the first place.
And talking about the connection to your facilitator again, or as Alice said, about sometimes it can happen that you project something into your facilitator. It can also be that you might have had a feeling of mistrusting your parents, that you couldn't trust your parents, and so it can be that also you might project this onto your facilitator, that this feeling of, oh my God, I'm not safe here, this talking about emotional safety, even though you felt initially really safe, and it's this old, also childhood trauma that comes up and you project onto your facilitator. And we can even hold you in that you can actually heal this feeling or this emotion of not trusting the other person who is with you in that moment, because your facilitator will also stay with you in that moment and not get triggered and be with you and hold you so that you can heal this.
Reviving the moments of trauma, reviving the moments when we got hurt, and activating all these wounds as well in the setting. It's a beautiful experience to go through with that facilitator. And talking about my experience as well, I remember my first experience with ayahuasca was quite intense, and it was very traumatizing because I didn't have that person next to me. And since then, for me, this was kind of like my eye-opener for me to do this work for others, to hold that safe space for others, because it's really crucial and very important for me to go deeper and to really surrender into experience, to have this support next to me. So I think it's beautiful.
Yes, and here's also important to note that when you are selecting a guide or an organization to have this experience with, ask them how they are working, because there are different ways of guiding somebody through a psychedelic experience. There are different approaches, and one of the approaches would be that if you're going to go through a very challenging moment, somebody is there with you but just is next to you, tells you words of encouragement and helps you to breathe slowly, but doesn't go into this experience with you. And then there's the approach that we have, is where we feel what is most transformative. This is just what we have, this is the experience we had ourselves, and this is what we believe in, is that if somebody really goes into this feeling with you, if they're not only holding your hand, but crying with you, feeling it with you, guiding you through, to release it, that this can be a lot more transformative. The first experience can also be wonderful. It can be an initiation into your own power, but it's about feeling into yourself and what do you need. Do you feel like you're somebody who would benefit from being supported through one of the most painful moments of your life, or your deepest vulnerabilities? It doesn't even have to be pain. Vulnerability can also be something really beautiful and neat that you have never expressed, joy that you have never expressed. So it's all about how much support and nurturing do you need. And what we specialize in is to really, I would say, pamper people through their experience. And it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It can still be difficult, but in these challenging moments, we believe it's really beautiful to give somebody the feeling they're really not alone.
I just shortly want to share an experience I had in a psychedelics experience, and how my facilitator, or how the presence of my facilitator actually helped me to resolve trauma or an issue I had. And it was about me having difficulties asking for help or expressing my needs. And while I was looping quite a while in the experience, I knew the only way out was asking. In that case, the facilitator was obviously the only person being with me, but asking that person to hold me, because I needed to be held, I needed to be hugged. And my system was fighting it, but I knew also this is the only way out. And so allowing myself to ask for help allowed me to create a new experience, because then the facilitator lied next to me and helped me, and that was all I needed to heal, because then I had a positive experience that gave me safety, and I learned in that moment that it's safe to ask for help and to express my needs. So the facilitator has a really important role in that moment.
Sometimes I'm asked by people, well, maybe I should go to the Amazon or to Mexico to have a psychedelic experience and be with indigenous people that are doing the shamanic work. And then I get really surprised and asking them back, do you think they're gonna speak your language? They're gonna know about the cultural background you come from? And then I tell them from my experience, because my first experience was here in Europe, in the language that I spoke, and with people that understand what the European Western psyche is about, and what difficulties we have and what problems we have that the indigenous people don't. And that can be so important, because then you feel really understand when you have someone with you that comes from the same cultural background. And by the way, psychedelic is not something that only grows in the Amazon. That's, for some people believe this, everywhere. There are plants everywhere around the globe that are psychoactive.
Yes, and the psilocybin mushrooms and truffles that we use are grown here. Mm-hmm. They grow all around the world, but they're also they're grown locally here. And there's one thing that I wanted to add, because we talk a lot about trauma, and I just want to clarify that when we talk about trauma, we talk about big trauma, but also little trauma. Mm-hmm. Little trauma can be your parents leaving you in a room alone when you were 1 year old for 5 minutes too long. That can be really overwhelming to the system of a little baby. It can be very little things. It can be just feeling too much pressure in school. All of these little things can be traumatic for a child. Actually are traumatic for a child, and so we use the word trauma for including all of these things, so that doesn't mean you can look back at your childhood and think like, oh, but I really didn't have any big problems. But that doesn't mean you didn't go through societal pressure, maybe expectations from your parents, not being emotionally mirrored and validated from your parents, and all of that leaves emotional residue. And so we don't actually have to call it trauma if you don't resonate with this word, but still meeting yourself means going into any pain that you felt from this pressure, from these expectations, from these not so emotionally healthy patterns of your family.
Yeah, and also emotional neglection. It's often the things that you don't see, that are not visible, and the things that didn't happen, that also can cause trauma. Mm-hmm.
Something different that I would like to add also in the preparation as well is, apart from having that best facilitator next to you, it's also knowing what type of experience do you want to have, no? If you want to have like a real deep experience for therapeutic use, it's also very important to know what's the dose, no? And I think we're very specialized and we're very intuitive as well with the experience that we have to know what's the best recommended dose for each one of the participants, and how to navigate in a safe space where you are not very, very out of the space as well, when you have that awareness and consciousness, but you can still go deeper into whatever the medicine will experience or will facilitate for you. So I think the dose, it's crucial in the therapeutic setting as well.
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot about how to feel safe and about the role of setting and your facilitator. Another thing I want to focus on is your intention before you get into the journey. And as Connie said, so she talked about the dosage, which is obviously one important thing, and about to know what kind of journey do you want to have, if you want to have a therapeutic journey. It's important to be aware that consciously or unconsciously you're going to have an intention. So even people who take psilocybin for recreational purposes, the intention might be that they just want to have fun. And when you want to dive a bit deeper and explore your inner worlds or overcome an issue you might have, it's important to really reflect on your intention. And sometimes it can be that you want to resolve several things at once. It can be really helpful to take your time a few weeks before already to start journal about those things. Because through journaling, it really helps you to look behind those different topics you might have and to see how they connect and how they are related. And then you can address the underlying cause or whatever, if it's an emotion you want to resolve or feel, if it's connecting to your inner child, or if it's instead of checking what you want to overcome, it could be that you want to imagine, okay, if I wouldn't have this problem anymore, if I wouldn't have this issue anymore, if I wouldn't suffer anymore, how could my life be? How do I want to be? How do I want to show up for myself? How do I want to show up in this world? And yeah, creating this specific intention really helps you to go into your journey while taking the medicine, for example, and it really helps you to set the course like a ship, and to be led, or to flow through your journey.
Sometimes people have difficulty to set their intention, and what I like to do, and I would like to share here, because it may be important for some of you, is I say to people, why don't you connect to let's say to the psilocybin and see it as an entity, and you can talk to it. So it's like asking it, please show me a way, for example, to feel my emotions, for example, or please show me a way how I can love myself, or please show me a way how I can get more clarity in my life and knowing what my life purpose is, for example. So this may be easier for some people to connect to their own intention and to really work on it and to take time for it. And also, an intention is usually very simple. It's not a big story or something. It's when it really resonates, when it really hits your heart, it's probably going to be just one sentence and a few words.
And if you were to come have your journey with us, then we would help you set the intention. So
Yes. Oh yes.
don't have to do this alone.
You don't have to do that.
Also, talking about intention brings up the topic of also expectations, because if you come to a psychedelic experience, you might have heard other people speak about their psychedelic experience, and so that creates expectations in our mind. Maybe you have watched the Netflix documentary and you have seen people share really beautiful things about their journeys, and they also share how they got there. So maybe they saw something, maybe they felt something, and this can create expectations in our mind. And after guiding like really more than 1,000 people through psychedelic journeys, we know that the ones that come with the highest expectations have the least outcomes. Because why? If you have an expectation and then your journey goes in a completely different way, you're starting to fight it. So the people that come with the most openness and say, whatever is going to come up, I'm going to sit with it and take it. And even if it's confusion, or even if it is something I really don't want to see or feel, this is what I'm going to take, and I'm going to be with it and sit with it and ask the facilitator to help guide me through it. And these are the people who have the best outcomes and the most transformative ones. And I think this also brings us to the topic of surrendering to what is.
I just want to add something to the expectations, because I, for example, when I work with clients one-on-one, I've had a few times the experience that people already know or read or hear that they shouldn't have expectations, which I saw with some people. What they do is then they suppress their expectations and they tell themselves that they shouldn't have them, they're not allowed to have them. But the thing is, the expectations are more powerful, like they're still there, and they come through, which can lead to disappointment afterwards, which we talk about integration later. We can still, look at that during integration processes. But so what I sometimes recommend to clients, what they do is like they write down all the expectations, that they actually become aware of them, that they know what's there, that they know it's like some people have the hope that they're going to be a different person the next day. And when you know that this is your wish, you can just think about it or journal about it, why you want to be a different person, what you're not happy with, which can also lead you to your intention again. So it's more becoming aware of your expectations and sharing that with your facilitator or your guide if you have one. That can be really powerful to not be disappointed afterwards.
So this brings us to the topic of surrendering and accepting, because just as Carol said, it doesn't help us to suppress anything. It doesn't help us to suppress the expectations that we have somewhere in our mind. It also doesn't help us suppress if we are in the experience and we want to fight the experience. I actually had to learn this in a psychedelic experience, because I was in it and I was fighting the experience, and then I was fighting that I was fighting the experience. So surrendering is about accepting and going with what is there in the moment. So what I did, for example, in that experience is I had to surrender, I had to accept the part of me that wanted to fight the experience. And once I did that and let myself fight the experience, I started to enjoy fighting. And then I moved through it so much faster. So surrendering, this is also something we hear a lot when we start researching about psychedelics. It's like you really have to surrender, you have to surrender. And then people start feeling very confused in the experience because they can't surrender. So that's why it's also important to have a good facilitator next to you who can help you surrender. So if you're stuck in a loop in your mind, it doesn't help you in that moment to start thinking, oh, I have to surrender, but the loop isn't going away. But if we can take that loop, and if we can make that loop more conscious, if we can make it bigger, if we can allow that loop to be there, then you can actually move through. If we can ask you the question in that moment, where do you feel all of these thoughts in your body, and bring you into the emotion, you can move through where the actual root cause that is creating the loop, and you can move through and you can release it. So surrendering is about accepting what is there, accepting the thoughts that are coming up, accepting the feelings that are coming up, and therefore moving through beautiful parts of the journey and also really difficult ones.
Thank you for adding that last part that you said about accepting, because some people are like, how do I really surrender? What is really to surrender? What is it to let go? How does it look now? And for me, in my experience and in the experience of the other participants as well, it's all about accepting everything that is happening for you in that moment, accepting that you're having trouble, accepting that it's very difficult for you, and embracing that with love. Bring it back into your heart, that experience that wants to be felt and wants to be seen. For that reason, it's there, it's happening. So even though the most challenging parts, for example, or if you're feeling very anxious, it's showing a part of yourself that wants to be seen and wants to be felt. Instead of fighting it and pushing it away, it's about embracing it and bringing it back into your whole self and accepting that wholeness as well.
What you said, it's what people often do, you know, because they read a lot about surrendering, as you said, and they put it on themselves a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. So it's sometimes when I encounter people like this, or I work with people like this, it's like, okay, invite that aspect of you that cannot surrender, that cannot be in a non-resistant state, that is resisting. And dealing with that aspect actually it's like allowing that aspect to be there. It's like saying yes to this. Yeah, that moves you through it. And it's not getting rid of anything. No. It's working with what is right here, right there, what is present within you, what you can become conscious of in that very moment.
Yeah, and this can also help us go into the journey, because sometimes it can be that our mind is busy with resistant thoughts, for example. And yeah, I had a couple of examples come to me from clients I had. For example, there was this woman and she was like, oh, nothing is happening, I can't get into it. And so I asked, like, okay, what's happening? And she's like, I don't want to be here. I should be at home with my kids looking after my family. Mm-hmm. And once I allowed this to be there and allowed her to feel this way, then she could go into the emotion and then she could go into the journey. So it's really, sometimes we think like something else should be happening, and we don't see that the resistance we are feeling right now is actually a door opener into the journey when we accept it and when we surrender to this. So surrendering is not really an active thing to do. It's more becoming passive. It's more not doing anything anymore. It's like stopping to do something.
Yeah, and it can be hard to surrender by yourself. So if you do a journey by yourself and these thoughts come up, it's very hard because these are very automated thoughts that are in your mind for a really long time, for many years, that you have probably picked up from someone that you trusted and loved when you were little. So having somebody next to you, like validating your experience, validating your emotion, making you feel safe, that it's okay to feel this way, to think this way, is really key to moving through. And this brings us to the last point of how to have the best trip of your life, which is not only the trip itself, but what you do with the insides of the journey when you go back home and to your daily life. You know, this combining the magical with the practical. That's what integration is. And the journey might have shown you parts of yourself that you didn't know before. And now you go back into the lives that you have created, not knowing these parts. And integration is about how can you include these parts into your environment that you have created for yourself. How can you be yourself with the people that you love and know? Maybe you found out about yourself that you are really not good at including your own needs, but that's something you need to do. The journey in itself is going to give you that insight, but you are going to need to make the actual change yourself afterwards and break the pattern. The journey itself might show you, like maybe you share your needs with your practitioner, with your facilitator, and they are really soft to you and meet your needs in that moment. So your nervous system has had one experience of, it was really safe to share my needs. But now you have to take more steps to actually make it a new normal for your nervous system. That the fear might still, like the fear is probably reduced a lot, but still be there. And you can make use of the neuroplasticity of the psilocybin or the psychedelic of your choice that you want to choose, because in the weeks after your experience, your brain is in a state that is much more open to learning new things and new patterns, and you can make use of that. So if you go home and you're actually going to change these patterns in the weeks after your experience, you can really create a big transformation in your life.
And as you said, Alice, sometimes it's not just the journey itself with the medicine, and it's also the best trip is when you have that integration, because it brings so much clarity and so many more insights than the journey itself. And to have that one-on-one with a facilitator as well, with another external eye that can help you to see beyond your own. It's beautiful, and it's very, it's like to recap the whole experience, no? For me, just the journey itself, it's beautiful, it can be very transformative, but without the integration, it's not the full trip, no? For me, the best trip will be with the integration, with that facilitator as well, and the adding of the practicality, as you said, and of the experience itself. Yeah.
And integration practically can be different things. So yes, it starts like how we work. It starts with an integration session, which can be a more therapeutic session. It can be more coaching session. It could be maybe also an exercise you do with your facilitator. It can be working with core beliefs that might have come up. So it can have really different forms. For some people, integration can be also like ecstatic dance or any form of free movement can really help you sink these insights into your body on a cellular level, on a deeper level. Spending time in nature, journaling, being creative, using artwork, using breath work are all methods or ways how you can integrate it on a more subconscious or physical level as well. While as like coaching sessions or therapy sessions, ongoing ones, can really help you implement how to use, how to work with your mind in a different way, or doing more inner child work to really integrate on deeper levels your insights you might have had.
So for me personally, integration is really practically to create new neural pathways in my brain.
Yes.
And it often helps also when I talk to clients and they say, well, what should I do? I say, don't do too much.
Yes.
Don't do too much. Just take one thing, one practice, maybe even just one positive emotion and try to feel it like for a few minutes every day. You're creating a new neural pathway in your brain, and it becomes, if you do that, the thing you're doing becomes more and more a quality of your life. And that's what integration is about, is to add more quality, or more, I wouldn't say, it's adding more the experience that is wanted into your life.
And that's how we're gonna create a new life for ourselves. Yeah, like all of the ways that we are contributing to our unhappiness, or to the feeling of feeling stuck, or the feeling of life is meaningless, right? We are, like, our neural pathways in our brain are wired in a way that create these experiences. So with creating new neural pathways, we can rewire our brain, we can rewire our life, and by doing that, we can actually create so much more happiness in our life. But here also we have to be careful, because we don't want to give you the impression that life can only be happy at all times. We are the happiest if we can surrender and release resistance also to the emotions of anger, of frustration, of overwhelm, of sadness. Like if somebody in your life, if you're going to lose somebody in your life, you're going to go through a process of grief, and that doesn't have to mean you have to go be depressed. If you can actually go through this process of grief and surrender to it completely and release the resistance and let all of the tears come out, it's going to be so much shorter. And we're only going to stay stuck in it the more we fight it. And so a happy life for me, and I think for all of us, is if we can be with what is, and if we can love ourselves through the hard times.
That wholeness.
Yes.
And also from a personal experience, what what my personal integration path was, it was actually an intention that I created for myself for the integration phase. And that was like, okay, I'm willing to feel my emotions. And I'm still doing it. So it's still my intention. I still try that every day. And like you said, it doesn't matter how I feel, but I'm not leaving myself in that moment anymore. And it created something so much new in my life, and my life changed completely, when I started this. So it could be just one example,
That's what we would love for you too, as we want to give you that experience of not being alone in the hard times, not being alone even in your greatest joy, to feel like somebody's there with you, so that you can learn how to do this for yourself also in your daily life, and then have that feeling of being able to surrender to everything that is. So as we're coming to the end of this podcast, of this video, I want to thank you for listening. And if you found this helpful and if you resonated with our approach, you can choose any of us as your guide for a private ceremony, or come to a group retreat where most of us are always there. Jeanne and Connie are the retreat leaders. Caro is there, not in each retreat, but in many of our retreats. And you can book a call with us if you want more information. You can visit our website for more information and follow us on social media. You can find us under Inner Shift Institute. And please subscribe to our channel, as there are going to be a lot more podcasts and videos coming.
Great.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Shift Within podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe for more insightful conversations. Keep asking, keep understanding, keep shifting within, and see you next time in the next episode.